Oh, what's up this goodie there? Yeah. Wow. I think it's for the speakers. What do you think? We're ready, guys? What a fast one is. Is it really? Oh my God, I think we're about ready. So we'd really encourage people to sort of sit in the middle band. We sort of feel a bit intimidated if you're too close, but way back there is a bit hard to reach, so middle band is good. So kia ora, my name is Joy Eaton, and I have the privilege of being a trustee of the New Zealand Youth Mentoring Network, and we are all mentors here, or people from mentoring organisations, and it's really great for us to be here today to be talking to you about relationships. And I'm particularly interested in the issue of quality relationships in mentoring that are the pivotal foundation of the way in which we will go forward, and the sort of solid foundation of the best way to make these mentoring relationships work. So lots of experts here who can talk to us about that. So I'll introduce you to them. So just here is Ross. Ross is from Heart for Youth, and I have had the privilege of working with Ross in the past, and it's been great. He's got lots of stories to tell. Great, and very good at sort of demonstrating them as well. So if you have the privilege of being in one of his in a session where he's the tutor, it's a really great experience. I'd just like to introduce you to Hilary. Hilary, as well as being doing some serious study work in terms of her PhD at the University of Auckland around mentoring and the relationships particularly. So she's got lots to tell us about that. Shanna is from Mates, and I'm great to tell you that she's worked with Mates Senior and Mates Junior. It's sponsored by and falls under a group called Great Potentials. So it's good to have Shanna here too, and she can tell you about the sort of relationship as between the tuakana taina type relationships that go on in that. Then we have Dave. Dave is from Brothers in Arms, and the really important thing I think about Dave is that he's a man of great reputation in the mentoring world, and it's good to have him here. Lovely to see you. And we have Damo, is it? Damien from I Have a Dream, which is based in Whangarei, and you're the program coordinator in that sort of area. So we actually are basically Waikato, which you guys, mates, go from the Waikato right up to the far north. So this is our where we're at. So we're talking about relationships, and I wanted to start off with, I'm not sure who wanted to start first, but I've given people about, oops, sorry, that's right, I should be using this. That's the other thing I have to say as well, is that I don't usually have a watch, so I had to borrow my friend's watch to make sure that we try and keep on time, especially as a number of these lovely people have to go and catch planes straight away after the program. So as you can see, we've got, those are our people, and, oops, is that working? No, that's the pointer. Oh, doesn't matter, oh, do I point there? Oops. I don't think it wasn't the green button, Nikki. Maybe it's that one. Maybe it's the top button. Ah, right. She told me there was the flowery button, it's the top button. All right, key messages about working with quality mentoring relationships. Just want to talk a little bit. I'm going to ask people to introduce themselves and their organisations and give us some key pointers about relationships and relationship building. Then I want to talk a little bit about them to talk about power sharing, and I'll talk a little bit about that as an introduction. And if we get time, but we may not get time, if we get time to talk about what happens when relationships become stressed. But to start this off, Dave is going to, because we're talking about relationships, Dave has got someone he would like to introduce to us to open the session.
Thanks, Joy. Yeah, kia ora, my name's Dave. I'm from Auckland, from the Brothers in Arms Youth Mentoring Program. Just going to put it straight out there because it causes confusion, but we work with females as well. Despite the name, we started with guys. So yeah, one-on-one mentoring is our passion, with people from the community delivering the mentoring in a volunteer capacity. for a minimum of a year. So it's a well-known kind of model in mentoring. But this was an opportunity to share about the power of relationships, and my little friend over here. So Zaina has been mentored for the past few years with this awesome mentor named Shelley, and I thought she delivered a spoken word yesterday in the bus stops, which was about their relationships and their relationship specifically, and that speaks a lot more than my perspective. So I'm going to hand over my introduction to Zaina.
Thank you for turning me into something that I could and can be, helping me grow my own two wings, turn a new leaf and plant a new seed. For the mentoring that inspires the mind to shine like diamonds and gold, and the key to believe in my heart and soul. For the extra handout you give to generations youth, helping us build our confidence and speak our truths. Giving lessons and tendencies of being a role model, of being a leader, a teacher, mother, father, or a brother in arms. Teaching us to connect, inspire, or grow forward. Giving voices, shedding light for the people in sight. You patiently listened and answered accordingly, never once showing signs of frustration. Thank you for taking the time to show me the necessary skills today that will lead me with confidence into tomorrow. I thank you for accepting me for who I am, and for knowing and believing that, as cliche as this may sound, but it's very, very true, that as long as we're together, we can never be apart. Now standing tall like stone walls with hearts in our backbones, we can set by example for the generations yet to come. To be like sticks, they break one by one, but together the bond is strong with the wisdom you have shared. You've raised us from a fire into the sky through the smoke of inspiration for everyone to see. So I thank your eyes for finding us. I thank your time for finding us. For you have led me to a path that cannot shake, that cannot bend, that cannot break, but that will lead the youth into where our futures belong. To where our futures can and will stand strong. Now sliding out from under my tongue, I thank you 1,000 and 1,000 more for the support of these past 3 years, and for the knowledge that has been taught by a very unique individual with a very special gift of giving. A gift of patience and understanding, and that someone is my mentor, Shelley Smith, who is now someone I call my friend, though I wouldn't have met her if it weren't for Brothers in Arms. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more? Is that your introduction?
Oh, kia ora everyone. That was awesome, and I think if you ever wanted to epitomise a relationship, we heard it just there. Secondly, I couldn't start without just making reference to Glenn this morning. I hadn't met him before. Oh my goodness, relationship right there. That was an EQ explosion, if there ever was. So thanks for having me here, and I feel honoured to be in such amazing company. So yeah, my name's Ross. I'm the founding director of Heart for Youth Trust, a youth mentoring organisation in Auckland. So currently we support young people, around about 25 to 30 very high needs young people per year, best we can. Supported with volunteer mentors, and certainly has its challenges, that's for sure. But it's a good day job, that's for sure. Along with that, I'm also, I feel like I'm under Rod Baxter, who's so I'm one of 2 national trainers for the New Zealand Youth Mentoring Network. Shout out to them. So if they're in your neighbourhood or coming their way, you'll probably get to meet myself or Rod, and we're really excited about the new program rolling out next year. So when it comes to relationship, with my work in Heart for Youth, so we do a lot of stuff in schools as well. And over the last 3 years, I think I do this little kind of pop quiz evaluation thing. It's very verbal, and so I might be sitting in front of a bunch of students, say year 12, year 13. I guess I've probably done this 500 or 600 students the last few years, and I ask them whether or not they'd agree with the statement. And the statement is this: young people today are surrounded by adults but not connected to adults. And almost inevitably, before I've even finished that statement, their hands are just shooting up going, yeah, we agree with that. And so the next statement I'd say to them, how many of you would think that that's actually not a great thing? And once again, the overwhelming majority would agree with that. So we're asking young people what they think about that. It's not us telling them. And so in terms of mentoring, we're poised in just the most amazing place. And for our organisation, I just say, hey, we're like a bridging, brokering organisation. We're saying to young people, you know what, there are adults out there that actually really care about you, that really want to connect with you and really want to just know what's going on and just be a part of your life. And we're saying to adults, you know what, there are young people, believe it or not, that would love your input. And I think there's just this sadness where young people think adults aren't interested and adults think that young people don't think much of what they've got to bring into their world. So that's what we do. We're like this bridging, brokering organisation. And I think in terms of relationship, if I can quote from the New Zealand Youth Mentoring Network around mentoring, mentoring aims to provide a purposeful, structured and trusting relationship that brings young people together with caring individuals who offer guidance, support and encouragement. So yeah, I love that. That's our mahi, and we're proud of it. And once again, I feel privileged to be here today in such great company.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. My name is Hilary, and as Joy said in the introduction, I'm a PhD student at the University of Auckland. I also work as a research coordinator on a longitudinal project looking at adult-youth relationships, particularly youth mentoring relationships, where we're trying to unpack what specific interactions between mentors and mentees lead to youth thriving. So we've kind of gone into this research going, we know that the relationship is doing the work. We know there's something that's happening in there. Let's see if we can really, really unpack what is happening in these relationships that are of such benefit to young people. So we're in the middle of doing that research now. I might actually travel back 6 years in time to where all of this started. In 2012, I was a mentor in the MATES program. I had zero intention of working with young people or anything, and then I spent a year with one, and I was like, this is it. They are so cool, so fun and interesting, and they need something from us. We can do something for them. And that kind of set me on my path, I guess, as a youth mentoring academic. In particular, the relationships is where it's all about. I'm pretty nosy about what people are like when they're together. I'm like, how do they feel about each other? What are they doing when they're together? And so it's really nice to be able to explore that in the youth mentoring context. And that was the focus of my master's project, which then I was very, very fortunate that Nikki MacDonald and Anne Dunphy invited me to include my master's research in this incredible document that we put together a few years ago, the Guide to Effective and Safe Practice in Youth Mentoring. And there's a chapter in there about building really great mentoring relationships, which I was able to basically construct out of my master's project. And it's been incredible to see how much the findings have resonated with people in the various sort of training that has been done through the New Zealand Youth Mentoring Network. So yeah, I just think that there is so much potential in mentoring relationships. I'm an absolute believer in their ability to transform lives, both from the mentor's perspective and the mentee's perspective. We're both getting something out of this relationship, and sort of my approach here is I guess a research-based and academic one to try and see what evidence we can get, so then we can spread that to everybody and make sure we're all doing the best we can do for our young people.
So we can look out for a lot more writing from Hilary.
Yes.
A lot more writing to come.
Taro whalava, ma loe lele, kia ora koutou. My name's Shanna, and I have the privilege of being the director of the MATES program, housed under Great Potentials Foundation. I've been a part of MATES for almost 15 years. It's been part of my career pathway. I started as a university student mentor and just couldn't leave. So I came back to lead it. But it's a real privilege to be able to recycle that success from what I received through the tuakana tēnā relationship. And MATES stands for Mentoring and Tutoring Education Scheme, and it's that balance where you can help a young person sort of get to that doorstep to make that choice, but also offer them the pastoral care to navigate through those waters. And Hilary is an amazing example of what we've been able to nurture through the program, and she's the science behind what we're able to do at the front line. So MATES connects university, tertiary students with university and tertiary student mentors and tutors with year 8 and year 13 students in schools predominantly low decile. And the young people that come on board our program are either self-identified as, yeah, I do want someone to help me journey through this year, which is a huge transitional point in my life. Or the teachers said, hey, look, I think you'd be awesome on this program where you would really benefit from having someone close in age, but not quite a teacher, not quite an older brother or sister, but has that good balance for someone to hear a different voice. And we're really lucky with MATES to be able to be based in the community, in the heart of what really happens. And we have been able to benefit from really relationships. And that's been the strength in the heart of our mahi, is protecting relationships, nurturing them, and also, creating them as well. Because I think that's the real powerhouse behind what we're able to do. Being part of MATES for over, 15 years, you see firsthand what quality mentoring looks like. And there's the scientific definition of what quality is, effective and measures and so forth. But I think, for us, it's really been based around 5 key things. And that, the first one is, intentional and meaningful relationships that have a purpose, that have at its essential core shared values. You don't need to know each other's background and have an exact match, but you do need to know there's common values shared. And I think everyone can go right down to that level and find true meaning in each other, no matter what your background is. The second one is around being unapologetically committed to this young person, and not having to answer to someone why you're giving so much time to them, because I think that's what young people really want, is time, and time for themselves, because we're so time poor in today's generation that to have someone in front of you just for you is rich, it's huge, it's valuable, it's gold. And also effective mentoring relationships really is about storytelling. So, Judge Beecroft shared the My Story framework, and we're true believers that mentors and mentees together build each other's stories. It's a relationship of reciprocity, where each other are building their stories and using that story to move forward on, the mentoring and the shared value and stuff. The fourth key thing around effective mentoring relationships that has really shone through the MATES program is that you have to have a conducive environment. You have to set the right conditions for the mentoring to take place. It can't just be inside the relationship. You have to have, the right support mechanisms for the mentor, for the management, and for the young person as well, because you can't, ask others to be effective when you don't create those conditions to be effective, and that's really important. And I think the fifth one is understanding that, cultural competency is not just an ethnic thing, it's understanding youth culture, and that's so valuable in building an effective mentoring relationship, because understanding the value of that culture intertwined with other cultures is just so valuable and such a really good practice tool as well. So that would be my key sort of contribution to that.
Thank you.
Oh. Tēnā tātou katoa, ko waio, ko manaia te maunga, ko aumanga te awa, ko Shota Rasta Valley te waka, ko Whangarei Central Baptist Church, toku whare karakia, ko Whangarei Taringa Praoa te moana. Yeah, get the fish. Ko Damien Clark toku ingoa. I am born and bred from Whangarei. It's an honour to sit on this panel with such esteemed experience, and it's an honour to sit on this panel with such esteemed all of you, tēnā tātou, all of us together, we are here. I have a Dream, which is a pilot project in Whangarei, working with students in schools, in 4 schools, in one community, and every student in that school, in each of all of those schools. We start with our students from 7 years old, and we journey with them all the way till they're 20. And we stay committed to them through the transitions of life. My background personally has been 10 years of youth work just in schools, and I moved to I Have a Dream when the opportunity arose in Whangarei, and took up the role as program manager, overseeing our team of youth workers, mentors, and as we call them, navigators to the dream. We see ourselves as the ama to the waka. The waka has always been there, particularly for Māori in the north. The dream has always been there. We are not the knight in shining armour here to save Whangarei. We are here to support and help steady through the rocky waters and be the navigator on the boat. We don't have to be the paddlers. We don't have to be we don't have to be everything to everyone. We certainly don't need to be everything to each young person. So that's a little bit about us. Mentoring, wow, I'm looking forward to getting into the discussion, and I'm sure that as we go, the opportunities will arise. Thank you.
So Damien, just tell us a little bit about the way in which you guys work in terms of
good question.
With your young people.
Thank you. Good question. So the way that we work is we have a navigator attached to a year level, and they grow up with that year level. They have 100 young people each in their year level, and so in a lot of ways it's a long-term, extensive model of youth work and mentoring. And in terms of mentoring, what I would say is that we develop the relationship with those young people and make sure that we are part of their lives and ingrained in their lives, and mentoring discussions happens the whole way through that relationship and that journey. We're in the classrooms, we are doing programs after school, we're involving volunteer mentors in their life as well, and we're working collaboratively with the school and the community to achieve that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's
cool.
good, thank you.
Ka
Just do you want to ask Dave if he wanted to add anything else, a little bit about Brothers in Arms and how they are working, how you guys work in your organisation?
Yeah, so our main program is community-based with 9 to 13-year-olds as our kind of target age group, which has come down over the years. We're finding we're being more effective in that space. Before teenage years, and peers are way cooler than a random adult, which is fair enough. So yeah, so connecting with that age group with a volunteer mentor, and we've also have a pilot project in a school at the moment called Bridge to Employment, which is the older age group, journeying with 30 to 40 students through year 11, 12 and 13, and a teen parent pilot project as well. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you. We were just, sorry, I just move on to the next bit. Oops. Okay. When I was thinking about this program and this panel, I wanted to acknowledge that there were people in the room here who have vast experiences in terms of developing relationships, in terms of the mentor and mentee relationship. And there's been quite a lot in this conference talking about power and power outside the relationship. In other words, the sort of the ways in which society is impacting on young people. But I wanted to particularly think about power within the relationship. And I was struck by what Mana was talking about at the very first of this conference, around the ways in which he felt disempowered. While he was asked for his opinion, he was actually feeling disempowered about their control of the outcome. And so that, again, started to trigger my thinking, but I'd done some thinking before that. And I'm from an education background, and so this is a quote that comes from education and literature. Those of you who are teachers will have heard of Russell Bishop's work. And I was particularly interested in the sort of the comments that he was making about some interviews that he'd taken around the ways in which young people and their families feel disempowered in the conversations, especially in developing relationships, especially in situations where they don't know the people that they're coming in to meet. And so how do they get along and create relationships that operate within that? So I was particularly interested in this because, again, coming from a teacher background, I don't always think myself as being the powerful person, and that therefore means that I don't always consider what my relationship is in the development of with the young person I'm working with. So I set these people a challenge to think about power sharing within the conversation, within the relationship. And I also gave them a quote, not just this one, but I gave them a quote about issues of self-determination. And the importance about self-determination in the future depends on relationships that are built up that are not dominating, that are no one person has a domination in the relationship. And that it works best if they are working alongside each other. But within an adult young person situation, there could be power imbalances. So I wanted these lovely people to give us some thoughts about the issues of establishing balance in the relationship. You go, Ross.
Cool, awesome. Wow, big question. I got a lot of thoughts going through my head there. So, interesting, generally in society we find any relationship between a young person and an adult outside of whānau, they come with labels, so teacher, student, coach, player, whatever that might be. And so in our organisations, we have mentors and mentees, or little buddies, or whatever you like to call them. And I remember one day I just matched an amazing, beautiful little 11-year-old girl with a fantastic mentor. She was, I think she was a Plunkett nurse or doing something awesome. And so we caught up, and I said, what did you guys do, you know, first day? And this was with a mentor, and she said, we went to the mall. And I said, oh, cool, awesome. And I said, oh, how was that? And she said, oh, it was great. I said, well, what'd you do? And she said, well, I just got to meet a whole lot of other 11 and 12-year-olds, her friends, right? And I said this to her, I said, to the mentee, the young person, I said, did she show you off like a badge? And she said, well, yeah, actually she did. She just dragged the mentor around the place going, this is my mentor, this is my mentor, this is my mentor. So for a lot of young people, having a mentor is incredibly empowering for them. No disrespect to the counselling profession, and this young girl had a lot of counsellors. I'm guessing perhaps if she was at the mall with a counsellor, she may not have been running around going, this is my counsellor, this is my counsellor, this is my counsellor. So I think from our perspective, and you know, I just think there was such your little friend there, so yeah, Lena, what a beautiful example. I hope you picked up on those words. So she started as a mentee, but when she began to just express the depth of the relationship, there was mother and father and all these beautiful words that she used. If I've got time, can I share a very deeply personal story? So I've fostered a lot of children and part of our journey, and I was pastoring, youth pastor many years ago, and a young man came into our world. It was a little bit different because he was a little bit older. He was kind of 16, 17. His world fell to bits. He was supposed to stay the weekend. He ended up living with us for 2 years. And I always found it awkward in terms of what do we call each other? And I wasn't going to put anything on him, and when we kind of met, it was always, how did we introduce each other? And I realised the dynamics of that relationship changed on his terms when one day he introduced me to somebody else as, this is my dad. And I just went, okay, cool, I'll go with that. So the heart of any relationship around that power thing is total acceptance. It's like the 4 core values of our organisation: accept, connect, equip and encourage. Acceptance is absolutely everything. If a young person can feel that you accept them, you are just, the door's wide open in terms of where that relationship will go. My mother, my father. So I don't know if that answers your question. Was that even part of the question? I don't know. I just felt inspired to say that. So acceptance is everything. It's just a beautiful thing for a young person to have an adult that's accepting me, that's not judging me, that's just walking alongside me, and just, let that beautiful thing grow and see what happens. And for us as mentors, most of that ends up on the terms of the young person, and that's an unusual thing for young people in our society to be able to not dictate the terms of the relationship with an adult, but certainly have a very strong say and stamp on what that kind of looks like moving forward. So, yeah.
Thanks, Ross. I was expecting him to stand up and do what he does at his trainings and demonstrate the walking alongside business. So, go for it.
All right. I think it's important for me as kind of the token researcher and academic here to acknowledge that as a sector, we're always trying to engage in evidence-based practice. Ideally, we want to be engaging in practices that have really good, robust evidence behind it. And that puts researchers in a position of power in terms of who are we asking and what are we asking from them. And historically, I think youth mentoring research has been about asking mentors what they think. And if we ask mentees anything, it's what did they get out of it? So the mentees are only an outcome. They aren't a person and experience who's actually doing this thing. They were just like, well, did you improve these grades? Or did your self-esteem improve? They were just an outcome. And I do feel like recently we've begun to see a bit of a shift where we've begun calling ourselves out and be like, well, are we really encouraging mentees to speak up in our research? Engaging in research with young people can be very difficult for us for ethical reasons. It's, extra layers of consent. There are pragmatic reasons why it can be difficult, but we have to get through those obstacles to make sure that we're hearing what mentees have to say, especially about their experiences in the relationship, because if they're in a relationship that is not very fun, or that they're not getting anything from, and they're just kind of going with the flow because they feel like they have to, that's not what youth mentoring is. We want them to be fully engaged and feel cared for and feel like they're being listened to. So part of that is sort of reflecting as researchers, well, are we really getting to the mentees and talking to them and making sure their voices are heard? And I think out of that sort of shift, we're beginning to see some really cool research around this idea of youth-initiated mentoring, where instead of having a program say, well, we have this group of mentors and this group of mentees, and let's pair these two and these two and these two, mentees come to the program, or they make the connection with the program, and they say, I want this person as my mentor. Usually people they already know. It might be an old teacher or a sports coach or someone, and they say, that's the person I want to be my mentor. And then the program goes to the mentor and says, hey, this young person has said you're kind of awesome. Would you like to mentor them? This is what the program's all about. And so at the very, very beginning, the mentee is the person who says, this is what I want and this is who I want it from. And I think that's a really good step forward. If we can make that work in very practical sense in our programs, I think that's a very exciting pathway ahead for ensuring that mentees really do get to have a voice in their relationships, and that they're active participants. They're not just being given a relationship, they're actively deciding to be in one and with whom they're deciding to have this relationship with.
Thanks, Hilary. That's not an easy question, by the way.
No.
But
I realise that.
I'll attempt to articulate this. So within the MATES program, there's a two-pronged approach to responding to that whole construct of power within, power across, power over. And so, you know, for us, the first one is the environment in which you create. So it's approaching the whole environment you're creating around the mentoring program to ensure that the mentee and mentor both understand there's limited resources, but in that you can own that. You can see what you can draw on that's around you. So the power balance is deconstructed and they both understand, they both bring richness to the relationship. So that's them bringing their culture, bringing their values, bringing what makes them unique to the table, deconstructs that power over, and it creates a power within and across. So that's the environment aspect, and that's what we really encourage in Mates, is to ensure that no one comes to the table more important than the other. And that leads into the idea of, secondly, design. You know, when you intentionally design your program in the way which Mates has, we include the young person from recruitment of mentor right up until continuous improvement of the program. And that's when you deliberately look at the mechanics of your program and say, where does a young person's input and voice need to be that's not token, but valued and appreciated? So we're forever asking, are we doing our job? And, you know, you cringe when you get the honest truth, but that's what makes it, you know, better, because you know that it's responsive and not reactive to things that you've decided not to address. So right from recruitment, we go in and we interview our young people in the schools in an environment that's familiar to them, so that it's not them feeling they're getting audited, because we all know how we react when it is audit. It's more than saying you're in a position of control where you can tell us what your needs are and let us do the running around for you. And it comes right through to the homework centres, where you've got a couple of mentors here who know that they check in with the young person to say, what would you like to do today? And so it's flipping that, knowing that it's not giving knowledge, not imparting, you know, content, but sharing experiences, because that's where it plays out neutrally, where experience creates a real good environment of mentoring. And also right through to continuous improvement, like where can we improve that you could get a really responsive mentoring program that you like and that you want. And I think that's really where we've put it, that kind of power thing into practical sense, where we've tried to say, okay, cool, this is not about a hierarchical type of mentoring program, it's about where can we both combine our powers and be Captain Planet and be really awesome in that sense. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Awesome. Where to start? My goodness. I think, can I just respond, Hilary? The youth-initiated mentoring is, it's an interesting concept, and it's something that we've looked at this year in implementing in a community that we're working in. But it's really just, and you may disagree, but from our findings, it's much more suited to the sort of older teen category, so sort of 16 years up. The youth-initiated is where the sort of research is lying on that. So I just wanted to differentiate that, especially when it comes to power. It's quite different with different age groups and things like that as well.
I think that's again a point that Mana was making himself on the first evening about, you know, asking a 5-year-old about, you know, their sort of, basically an adult decision, so yeah.
Yes, so just, I think the youth initiating mentoring, if you're working with older young people, in that 16 to 24 group, it's something that should be looked at in the future, and there's some really cool research coming out about that. So I thought I would share a quote from someone a lot smarter than I on this subject, and it's around power. And I found it quite challenging. As practitioners, this is from Dr. Glenn Laverack. I don't know if people have heard of Glenn. And he's got this quote, and it's around the idea of power. And he says that for us as practitioners, we all have to make a choice, and there's kind of two paths to go down. And the choice is that we choose to work with young people or families or groups or communities from a place of trying to change behaviour, or we are there to help people take control of their own lives. So there's kind of this professional choice that we have to make in our design and delivery of our programs. And it seems quite subtle, the difference, between, because the outcome everyone is hoping for and everyone that works with young people here is the same. Like, we all want to improve a young person's life, but it's the process and how we get there and where the difference really lies. And this is important in terms of when it comes to power, because one model of we are here because we have identified we need to change a set of behaviours is a very top-down approach and a top-down model. And his quote was, behaviour change uses a top-down approach using behavioural change strategies or motivational strategies, and it's quite subtle. Versus, the word empowerment, which gets bandied ding, ding, ding around a lot, along with collaboration, ding, 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 and other words we've heard a lot this week. But empowerment, there's a commitment to properly engage with people, to find out what their needs are, build their capacity, give them some political awareness, let them make their own decisions. It's the ethically proper way to do it, has much longer term effectiveness, and is more sustainable for individuals and communities. So I thought I would just share that reflection from him around, are we designing and trying to implement programs from a model of behaviour change, or are we willing to actually start with, and we all say child-centred, but are we really wanting to start with the child and where they're at right now? And are we brave enough to go on a journey with them and empower them in the process? So that was one thing I wanted to share. And the second thing is the same as my sis here, with this power over, power with, power to, power within model. And I think it's really relevant for the work and with mentoring. And just to briefly summarize that, we all know what power over looks like, but power with, and I think acknowledging in a mentoring relationship with a 9-year-old, where there's an adult, there is power dynamic, and the adult is in the power. And we have to acknowledge that from the beginning and be aware of that, and if we don't, then we're probably not going to do a great job. And so our role is then, how do we move from that position of power? And for lots of young people that are referred to us, so all the young people that we work with are referred from organisations like Oranga Tamariki or mental health providers, and they've had lots of adults already in power, with power over. And so to shift that takes a flippin' long time to build trust with a young person. And so I wanted to acknowledge too that it's not fast work, it's a long process. And so power with, what does that look like? The questions that you asked, what should we do today? You starting to share some of those things. What do kids your age like to do? We start to share some power. Then we move to giving them power to them, which is about building their mana. And it's about upholding the dignity of each of the young people that we work with. And that's giving some power to them. And then following on that with the power within, which you mentioned, which is, are we able to move that power to a young person? And I think Zaina reflected on that, who's now taken control of her own life and able, self-determination is the place that we want to shift to. And mentors can totally be a part of that journey, but being aware of your starting position is really important. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, kia ora to that. Whew. Okay. Wrap it up. Don't think so. I'm just going to keep opening it. I look at that quote. So when the whakaaro was shared with us of what was behind mentoring, because we jumped on board, it's like, mentoring, no mentoring, and it's like power sharing. It's like, whoa, okay. The quote, and I thought about it, and I guess I'm coming from a school perspective. I'm working in schools, and that's important to acknowledge. Students understand themselves to be powerless to develop positive, caring, and learning relationships where they did not already exist. And so as I'd rock around the school, I'd be building relationships. That was what I did. I went around and I made sure that the students in that school knew who I was, had a relationship with me, and if they needed to talk, they knew I was someone that they could relate to and someone who cared. And my go-to conversation starter was What are you enjoying about school? Strengths-based, positive. It's got to be positive. And what's your favourite subject? And unanimously, every single time, it was about the relationship with the teacher. Every time. Those were the subjects they did the best in. Those were the subjects they went with the right attitude. Those were the subjects that they enjoyed. Those were the subjects that they learned. And it was sometimes about that teacher... it was always about the relationship of respect that teacher was able to start with. So where the relationship did not already exist, they allowed it, they made sure that the relationship already existed. And as the adults in the situation, they took responsibility for that as teachers and made sure that the relationship started well. For some young people, and all young people are different, and I got the pleasure to work with a range of young people right across the bell curve, the young people who are struggling immensely with life, and young people who are absolutely thriving and will go on to become the Prime Minister one day. Some of those young people, it was actually about being kept on task, helping them towards their goals, but it was still about a relationship of respect. Now, unanimously where it wasn't working was where there was a breakdown of relationship of respect. And young people would, you could just see it on their face. Like, what power do I have as the student in this situation, as the young person, to develop positive, caring, and learning relationship with my teacher? How do I do that? How do I do that? I don't, didn't need to say it. The tools, the ability, the relationship, the power of relationship didn't allow for that. And so I spent a lot of my time in school, and I spent a lot of my time in schools modeling relationships of respect, modeling a breakdown of the power relationship where I'm a person and you're a person. And we strip the titles, we strip the bull crap, and in that moment, we're just two people. And we're doing life together, and we're talking about life, and what's going on for you. And you know what I mean? It wasn't that complicated. And from that space, I would challenge them around things of the tit-for-tat cycle, and start to empower them with some of the tools to understand the relationships that they find themselves in. Tit for tat, give respect, get respect. Your responsibility, your ability to actually restart that relationship with respect, to apologise for what you've done to piss off that teacher, take ownership for your behaviour. And those were hard conversations. Some guys got it, some guys didn't, and that was cool. But bottom line, they knew that with me, it was not going to be like that. The relationship with this adult was going to be about, we felt equal. There was no power imbalance. In fact, I like what has been said. The power was shared. It wasn't that I didn't have power, but it was that the power was shared. We both had power. And I suppose I think about my own life and my own mentoring. I'm still trying to work life out. Holy heck. I'm still got mentors. I need them. I talked to one last night, whoosh. It's really useful to be mentored as a mentor because you experience the feeling. And when I experience the feeling of power sharing, and when I think about power sharing and the mentoring relationship, I think about the fact that now as an adult, I take ownership of my feelings, my emotions, I take ownership of my behaviour, and I recognise that, and actually I reach out to my mentor and I initiate the mentor discussion, and I think that's been said and I want to acknowledge that. Because now, years on, and with a lot of the young people that I've mentored having grown up, and it's awesome living in a small town, Whangarei, so I run into them all the time. We're at Fat Freddy's Drop in Kerikeri one concert, and we see each other, and it's just like, yo, what's up, man? And like, we're in the middle of this concert having this heart-to-heart again. And that's an absolute privilege that I have to live in a small town, in a small area like Twopronged, where that sort of thing can happen. But really, where I'm wanting to work all my mentoring relationships to is where eventually they are taking power, they've been empowered, and they are coming to me. And they know I care. And we've done intentional mentoring for some years. And later on in life, have I empowered them enough? Have I given them the power in our relationship where they can take the choice now to take responsibility for their behaviours and come and talk to me? Now, I know that's very ideal, but I think of Hart's ladder of participation, because that is ideal, Hart's ladder of participation. It's an idealistic model, and it's not always possible, but one rung at a time. That's the key. And so is my mentoring, and I think about my mentoring, is it adult initiated? Is it, am I consulting? Is it token? Do I really care? Or is it youth and adult initiated? Is there a partnership in that relationship? Have we shared power? Have we allowed for them, have I allowed for them to talk about what is really going on, rather than what the dean has asked me to talk to about them, and talk them through and get the goals of whatever the school wants out of that relationship.
So the question I have is, how much did you talk to the teachers about this idea of power issues? Oh
man, I wish I was like that onto it back then. Look, to be honest, when you sent this, I actually spent a lot of time reflecting on the fact that this has not actually been something that I've consciously been aware of in the last 10 years of my mentoring, but have unconsciously been doing it. Sure, yeah, and look, I need to say, I've got a massive, massive amount of respect for teachers. They are flipping everyday heroes, and they deserve every pay rise that they can get out of the situation. And I'll say that because they're striking today. Woo! Get there, and all of my youth workers have got a day off because there's no school on. So, you know, yeah, with strategic discussions. Trying to make something up for them to do. But, you know, so and we are now. So in I Have a Dream, there's this tension of multidisciplinary teams. You know, like we're trying to work together, but they have a worldview and we have a worldview, and we're trying to challenge each other on how to build the relationship. And actually, teachers are getting good. Like, I'm meeting teachers and I'm like, you should be a youth worker, man. You rock. You know, a lot of them are primary teachers, and I think that speaks a lot to what they're being trained on. But this power sharing thing, it's important. It's incredibly important, and I think that people are in multiple professions becoming more and more aware of it, which is really encouraging.
Cool, thank you. I'm just going to take a slight breather here and just really get a gauge of response from you there. We've got about 20 minutes left, and we could possibly talk about the issue of when relationships go wrong, which these lovely people have been sort of told that they might have to prepare for. But I didn't leave any time for any questions, because having 5 people on a panel is a bit of a challenge in the time that we had. So I just wanted to maybe pause for a moment to see if there was any real questions anybody really wanted to ask before we went on any further. Anybody have any questions around the issue of power sharing within relationships? I just wanted to say that's great, because I think you guys have done an awesome job at trying to show a perspective across different sectors, different parts of our sector. So thank you for that. So do you either want to respond to each other, or would you like to go on now and talk about when the relationships go wrong?
just from a program perspective and in terms of training your mentors. So one of the things that we do very early in our mentor training is to challenge the potential mentor because people have different motivations, you know, for wanting to become mentors. And so we want to really have a bit of a, get them to have a think about what's motivating them to do this. And in fact, that's absolutely critical because maybe some of that more old school kind of thinking is kind of my way, the highway. In fact, I learnt this very, very early as a caregiver. I had a young boy come into my world, and his world, we were in different worlds. I mean, I'd had a bit of a challenging upbringing, but, you know, this young man, and I sort of thought, wow, he'd just see my world and go, wow, you're awesome, Ross, I want to be like you, you know. Well, I was pretty mistaken about that. And so, yeah, so it's about challenging people about what their motivations are. And so, you know, you get people turning out, and they're well-meaning, but as mentors, we're not there to save our young people. You know, we're not there to instill a set of ideals on them. And, you know, I come from a faith-based environment, and I say to people, you know, you know, that could be you if you're getting motivation from on high to help your fellow man, that's awesome. But what you need to understand for some young people, faith or people generally has been an incredibly negative experience. So whilst it might be really positive for you, it might not be for them, and vice versa. And individually, I've had sort of both those experiences. And so, you know, it's really, really important, I think, in terms of your training to, you know, really challenge, I don't know if you guys agree with that, but, you know, challenge your tentative mentors about what's motivating them, and you're not here to save or instill, you know, your worldview on them. It really is about that journeying alongside. Yeah.
Can I follow that up? Because I'll go on to the when it goes wrong. But off the back of that, and one of the people that Hilary's been working with Renee Spencer has done a lot of research, particularly in the Big Brothers Big Sisters model in the States, and she's written some really interesting thoughts on this, and a lot of it, if you summarize it, comes down to expectations. And I think that's probably one of the biggest learnings we've had over the last couple of years is really understanding the motivations, because then you know what people's expectations are. Like you get the heroes who come in and they're going to change a kid's life because that's what they're, you know, meant to do. Or you have, and we've talked a lot here just about mentor-mentee, but there's another important component, which is whānau. And as it's kind of been touched on, but we haven't really mentioned it, but for all of us, I know that's really important. And the expectations of whānau, of the mentor, and of the young person is absolutely critical to the success of whether that relationship will continue. So if expectations are not met, then it's probably going to fall down. If a young person is expecting a cool dude to turn up to be their mentor, and then I turn up, it's probably not going to go down so well. They'll be like, where's Damo? I thought I was getting Damo as a mentor, and I've got Dave. And that's really disappointing. And then, or he doesn't look like me. Or how's he going to help? Or he does look like me, and I don't want that. Or, you know, and there's so many things that we've got to get right. And I was just going to say, there's so much work that has to go into mentoring in the beginning. You know, it's like all upfront work. Expectations, what people are hoping to get out of the relationship. And if they're not met, it's probably not going to go well. And so I'd say that would be my summary on one of the biggest challenges, to meet people's expectations.
One of the things I was thinking of when I was again searching this issue of power was about friendship groups as well. So if you widen whānau into friendship groups, and in a day when we're all connected technically, through technology, what effect does that have on the work that you do? Do you think, like beyond whānau, into friendship groups?
Yeah. Well, do you want to answer that one? I feel like I've had the mic.
So digital and technology impact on the whānau friendship.
When you were talking about, Dave was talking about the whānau influences and the importance of whānau, but also friendship groups can also create expectations on young people about how they might behave or how they might work and work through. So would you help to connect in with friendship groups, if you like?
I think it's really important to understand mentoring as a holistic model. You know, you can't take a young person and then address them just as a student. You have to understand that they're either a friend, a sibling, the youngest of a family of 6, you know, or the one in charge of everything, the one that's bringing the money, the one that has responsibility. So I think it's critical that you do acknowledge that relationship with their peers, because there is a huge influence in communication and how they respond to you. If they're one of 6 tightly knitted peers and they're the only one receiving mentoring, and they go back to a group of 6 that don't get mentoring, you know, that's really important. So I think that's critical. And I also think in this digital age where our young people are digital natives, you know, you've got to look at also intergenerational communication and the impact of that on mentoring. But yeah, I could go on, but I do want to share them, like, but yeah.
I just, in terms of the impact of friends and external parties, as I said earlier, I was part of the MATES program, and the MATES Junior, the way that it is structured is that you have multiple peers all mentoring in the same place at the same time. So as a mentor, you're acutely aware of, like, what's happening with the other mentoring peers, the other mentees, what's happening that's affecting my mentee in that moment. Sometimes, you know, particularly in like a structure like that, my mentee was very good friends with another of the mentees in the group, so I had to be able to like hook up with that mentor and go, they just kind of want to do their own thing today, like maybe what we planned isn't going to happen, but let's just hang out with them both. And you have to have real flexibility, because at times, I mean, at that point she was kind of 12 to 13, and spending time with her friends after school was really, really important, but she also had a commitment to the program, and it's about trying to sort of bring all of that in as much as we can. And then also touching on something you said right at the very beginning today about sort of being taken, or there was someone who got taken to the mall and got shown around. There's some research from a program in the States where mentors go in at lunchtime, and they basically sit with sort of their mentee at lunchtime, and of course, since it's lunchtime and they're all sitting together, their friends are like, what about, can this be my mentor too? And the different strategies that mentors took, where some mentors were like, no, this is just me and my mentee, and would separate themselves. Like the mentee needed that. The mentee didn't want to share the mentor, so the mentor was like, okay, we've got to go have lunch separate from everyone else. And then there were other mentees that had this attitude of like, no, I'm going to share you around with all my friends because you're a real cool adult, and I want you to become kind of by default a mentor to all these other adults. So I think it is always about the mentor being flexible and responsive to what it is that the mentee is requiring in any given moment, and being ready for that to change because of these external forces or the things inside of them that are changing as they develop. That's what I would add. Did you want to add something there?
So in terms of the peer relationships and things, it might be just a perspective on working with boys, so I'll just acknowledge that in this situation. But over the course of a couple years, because the role was very much presence-based youth work in schools, I had a long leash, or I had kind of free range. It was like, just get in there and do some youth work. Okay. I hung out with a group of students for about 2 years, every so often, maybe once a week at lunchtime, and I'd be part of their group, and they'd be talking about stuff, talking about what happened on the weekend, talking about their first 11 cricket, first 15 rugby. They were the jocks, they were the big bravado guys, they were peacocks in the school. They were also the leaders and the guys who had head boy tagged onto them from year 9 and things like that. And it was a really interesting group dynamic where they descended into into incredibly destructive bullying behaviour to other groups all around the school. And because I had implanted myself in that group with relationships, I'd become a bit of a go-to, but never in front of the group. None of them would talk to me in front of the group. None of them could let down the bravado. None of them could expose their weaknesses and actually the deep hurt that was going on in their own lives that was spinning out into this behaviour. And I remember in year 13, one story of just one of the lads that was part of that group. At the end of lunchtime, he came up to me and said, "Oh, you look, you know, what are you doing last period? It'd be great to chat." And he ended up breaking down and completely unable to reconcile the person that he had become in this group setting. He was the enforcer. So he was the guy that they just clicked his fingers and pointed, and he would go and smash that person. Parties, they'd be drinking after the first 15 games. He was the biggest guy. He was the hooker. He had a reputation. He was the man. And he was not that person. That was not him. And he was just completely at an end. Who the heck am I? And I know this is a year 13 discussion, you know, like there's different levels of mentoring and young people at different stages. And I also recognize the level of need, and this is self-actualization, you know, in terms of the hierarchy of needs. And so that's the level where we're at in this discussion. But it was simply an opportunity to reflect back something different that I saw in him that wasn't based on his peer group. And so sometimes we can, as mentors, we can come into that peer group situation. If we know that peer group enough, we can actually say, "Hey, bro, I know. And I still don't see you as that person." And maybe that's a little bit of my own faith background as well. Maybe it's just my strengths-based approach, and I can't but help see the potential in these young people, even though they're the enforcers of the high school, the jocks and the guys who play first 15 every weekend and then go get smashed. And I'm still like, "Bro, you're such a caring person, and I see it." They might not see it, but I see it. And we caught up maybe, and that was him initiating that. But I had the privilege to develop the relationship first, and that's probably not a traditional mentoring program, possibly, and so it turned out we caught up for the next 6 months. We caught up post high school every 3 or 4 months. We caught up. It wasn't regular, but it was enough that 2 years later, he came back to me and said, "I think I want to join the police, and I think I want to make a difference for young people." And he was then the person that I brought back to speak to young people who were going through the same thing in school. And that was sick. That was so cool. And I was like, there it is, man. There's you. Get out of that peer situation. You are not defined by your peers, and you are not, like that's mentoring, eh? I didn't need to have the answers. I just need to listen and be there and encourage.
Thanks.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Okay, so we've just got about another 5-10 minutes. So I thought we'd just again ask if anybody had any questions, and then we'd just wrap up by allowing these awesome people to have a 1-minute message to everybody. So anybody have any questions that they would like to ask at this point? We sort of convinced everybody about the importance of relationships and quality relationships. Hi, kia ora.
He's got that.
Oh, okay. What kind of youth?
Yeah, good question. We're a little bit out of the box where people say, oh, what age group do you work with? And we just say youth and young adults. So my theory is the number of days you've been on planet Earth don't really amount to anything. So some of our tamariki that come our way are wise beyond their years, incredibly wise beyond their years in certain parts of their journeys, and other parts, you know, maybe some of that emotional stuff is just yet to even be tapped and developed. So, yeah, our referrals mostly are all referrals, so we do get some self-referrals. So, yeah, so at the moment our youngest is a young person, a brother and sister that are currently in care of Arama Tamariki, so girls 8, boys 10, youngest is 8, so, and we're supporting right up to age 24. So yeah, we get referrals from anyone and everyone that works with young people. We work a lot with young people that have either been victims, perpetrators, or witnesses of family violence. So we get referrals from refuge. And obviously we work with kids on diversion plans. I find them a little bit harder because they see us as part of the punitive, you know, here's your diversion plan, so you got to plug in with Heart for Youth. My friend was my program coordinator, Zach, there somewhere, and he might do 3 months of mentoring. A little bit difficult because, again, they see as part of the system, and they, you know, we're meeting because they played up. But yeah, generally that's where most of our kids come from.
Kia ora for the question. So with Mates, we work with 12 to 24-year-olds. We have the old mentor who's over 24, but we work in 11 schools. We have roughly around 300 young people a year in our program, and we predominantly have Māori and Pasifika, and we're predominantly out in South Auckland.
Yeah, with what I've been referencing today is work with 9 to 13-year-olds, boys and girls, and referrals also from Oranga Tamariki social workers in schools. We're Central Auckland, so the Kari Centre in Green Lane with adolescent mental health. Yeah, that's the main thing, and yeah, working with around 100 young people a year in the one-to-one relationship.
I think I've picked up on the question. I'm sorry I missed it. I was running around trying to maybe get the mic out to the crowd, and then I realised there could be horrendous feedback. Sound desk, is it all right to have the mic running around it here if people have questions? I got a thumbs up, cool. I think I've got the gist of the question. Most of my age, okay, so most of what I've talked to today has been experience working with 12 to 18-year-olds in a boys' high school. And those were relationship-based referrals, just being out there, knowing the guys. And currently, with I Have a Dream, we're working with 7 to our oldest are 13. We'll be growing up with them all the way to 20. And that's not referred-based. That is, every student has the opportunity to opt in, and every student and whānau have done so far. So we're working across the board.
Thank you. Sorry, yep, down here.
Do you want the mic? You're good.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question?
You're convinced. How do you convince your boss around funding? Yeah, and what sector? What are you doing in terms? Where do we get funded? My goodness. We pray, we beg, we sell things. We do. Yeah, so, yeah, anywhere and everywhere. We run a program, it's kind of like, it's called Lots of Little, it's like child sponsorship. Except, so what we find is we train mentors, and not all of them can make that time commitment. We say, you know, it's a good thing. How'd you like to just, you know, shout Joy and her mentee a burger and fries per week, so they might sign up to supporting us that way. But yeah, we're just working as best we can, traditional funders. We've only just, first time ever, put in a funding with the ministry here, so fingers crossed I might go down the road, knock on their door. So yeah, traditional funders, obviously lotteries, whenever, wherever, whoever, however. Anyone?
For us, we get funding from philanthropy or philanthropic groups, you know, family trusts, You've got Ministry of Youth Development, local. Are we giving, oh, it's good to share. And just in general, it's really just whoever's got a particular type of area that you really fit into, it's good. Otherwise, just working with other mentoring organisations to partner, really.
Yeah, how do you convince your boss? Probably don't start with funding. It's not a lucrative field. Yeah, similar to these guys, philanthropic. It's all privately funded, yeah.
It's a hard question because I'm not sure of your context and what you guys do already, but what I would say is if it's like, oh, mentoring, maybe mentoring's the answer, we need to be doing mentoring. It's hard to know if it is the answer, for you guys. It's the answer. Depends what you're doing. It depends what's... Yeah, it's the mentoring panel. But I think take away the term, like mentoring, just strip that away, and let's just focus on the fact that these are relationships that are empowering and about getting them thinking and about getting young people doing life and being keen on life, really, and being empowered in life. And we can do that in everything that we do. We can have mentoring relationships everywhere. And maybe it's one or two in the way that you work. Maybe it's a program, maybe it's not. So yeah, I just want to tautoko. Oh, summary, here we go. The summary, holy hecka. Yeah, start me 1 minute. Oh,
sorry, I know
one last question, is it?
Yeah, sorry, I know you're running short on time, but we were talking about relationships, and I'm a youth justice, youth worker, so I get a lot of referrals through Orangatamari Youth Justice, and I'm the only person in my team that can work with high-end offenders or people that are 247Ds. And a lot of the clients that I get referred through to me are boys, and there's a lot of hesitant from the referrers to refer to me being a female and the mentees being a boy or male. Do you guys ever experience any challenges with that or have any advice for a female mentor who I love my job and I think I do a fairly decent job, but struggle getting referrals made to me because of being a female working with male mentees?
One person answer. Who's got the answer?
Yeah, there can be a real positive around that. So a lot of the young males that I come across, the males that they've had in their lives have either been non-existent. Some of them have had mums but never been mothered. So some of them, sometimes you're in a beautiful position to be able to, probably go there where other people can't. My thing would be saying to your boss, can we get a male and female always works good if you can. But obviously you'd need boundaries and parameters, and if it works, it's positive. Go with it within the framework that you're allowed to work in. Happy to chat after if that's helpful. Sorry?
So yeah, just conscious of time now. Sorry that we sort of extended and then didn't extend. So conscious of time now, just one last round if anybody else wants to give any key messages, otherwise we'll be thanking people hugely for your time and your thoughts.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Joy. Can I point to you, if you have questions downstairs, the Green People, New Zealand Youth Mentoring Network, if you need support for your organisations. But just in summary, 700 people coming here over the last couple of days. Here's the thing, we're converted. We're the converts. We believe in this stuff. We're super excited. Most of the nation don't even know what's going on here today. So fly the flag, evangelise for mentoring, whether it's with the government, with your own organisations. If they don't have a mentoring component, bring it in. It's phenomenal. It's life-changing. I really do believe, it potentially, we've lost it. We lost those natural tuakana-taina relationships with your Māori Pākehā, all sorts of different reasons. We need to bring that back, and mentoring is a great way to do that. Thank you.
All I'm going to sort of sum everything up is that mentoring relationships are the best, they are the magic, and they are the way forward, but we have to really make sure that we're attending very, very closely to everything that's happening in there. Although they're all unique, trying to sort of capture any kinds of common patterns across them so that we can learn from each other from program to program and everywhere we go, because it is a magic that is worth spreading. Thank you everyone for being here.
You know, for those of you who are looking to start up mentoring programs or just maintain, I know we're still a growing sector, we're still learning, and I just want to acknowledge that at the heart of it, what we're trying to protect is meaningful relationships for young people with those who really want to commit to them. And just, you know, at the basic level, you know, as a big sector, we're supporting each other and our mentors, but even as programs, we need support. We look to each other to mentor, and saying that, I just want to acknowledge Robson Tavita from Tulepa Youth Mentoring. You know, because there's that idea of, you know, whānau and ainga, you know, you support each other as well. So that's out there as well. So it's not just us, but it's a whole family out there.
Thanks so much for showing an interest in mentoring. It's really humbling, and we passionately believe in it, and have seen time and time again the effectiveness of it in communities. And so if anyone wants to find out any more at the end, Dietrich, wake up, can you put your hand up, bro? If you want to go and have a chat to Dietrich after, then that would be awesome. Happy to share.
To wrap up from me, I would just say that all young people from all walks of life go through times in their life where there's a sense of powerlessness. And I would say do not underestimate the relationships that are around you in your life, not just in your work, but be there for young people everywhere in your life. Do not underestimate the potential for that relationship to be incredibly deep if they know that you care and you are there for them. Kia ora.
So thank you very much for your attendance, your interest, and it's great to have you here. And thank you to these wonderful people giving their time and their thoughts. Kia ora. I guess it's lunchtime. Yeah. Thanks.